Welcome to the FemiNinja Project. I am your host, Cheryl Ilove, middle-aged ninja hiding in plain sight, dedicated to restoring human dignity one person at a time and helping you unleash your personal power. Discover that it's possible to look like a woman, act like a lady, move like a ninja, and think like a warrior. And remember, men are always welcome on the FemiNinja Project. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the FemiNinja Project. And thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And, having really strong relationships and making connections is so much a part of the human connection. It's the human condition, and it's actually part of our human dignity. And it's really taken a hit lately over the past, let's say 12 months with the pandemic. And we're feeling a little bit maybe dissociated from other people or detached, feeling lonely or frustrated. But it's still possible to be able to have strong connections in spite of being socially distanced and that type of thing. So today's guest her name is Joyce Feustel, and she is an expert on making connections and building relationships. She is also a lifelong learner, an experienced and savvy networker, and she is the owner of the Boomers Social Media Tutor. Joyce, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I know it's been a long time in the making.
Yes, it has.
So exciting for me to be here with you.
Well, not only has it been a long time in the making, but I just want the listeners to know that I've known you for several years now. I have actually hired you because I am a baby boomer and proud of it, by the way. And of course, social media was definitely not my forte, nor was technology when I first met you. But you just really helped me turn the corner and look at me now. So you go, girl.
Both of us, yeah.
Okay, so tell us how you got into this social media expert, tutoring and connecting. So just tell us your story.
Well, to start out, I'm 72 years old, having come up with the idea of this business by virtue of a question my manager at the time asked me, and that happened 11 years ago. So I can start my story then, but I'm going to do like a 1 minute, back to the future, whatever you want to call it, back to when I was a kid. So I'm growing up in the 50s and 60s, right? I'm in my early 70s now. This is in Wisconsin, small town Wisconsin. My mom had been a teacher, her whole side of the family, a lot of teachers. I figured I'd be a teacher. I mean, what else did girls do who were born in the late 40s, early 50s, right?
Right.
So I go to college, University of Wisconsin, great college, get my schooling done. But student teaching goes so badly. I mean, really badly. 9th grade English. It was 10 long weeks. I switched to another type of major, health, tried that, got a whole nother degree out of it, tried health teaching. That didn't work out. And then I tried a couple other careers in my 20s. None of them panned out. My husband was after me to have a baby. Well, that could have took care of the 80s because then I was at home. Into the 90s, we came out here from Wisconsin when we were both 46. I fell into the field of sales where I spent my time for 17 years, not unhappily, but not really super duper salesperson. And then this really incredible question was asked of me in March of 2010, like I said, when I was 61. And it was, Joyce, since you're so good at telling our clients about this new social media thing we've got going here for our company, back when it was, like, is it going to stick around or not? Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. Since you're so good at doing that, my manager said to me, as one of the salespeople, he said, hey, have you ever thought about helping other people in your baby boomer age group, especially, to understand them, for them to understand social media like you do? So in other words, he saw me in just a few months when we were actually given little bonuses of $5 for a Twitter follow. And so I thought, why not? Something to talk about besides what I'm supposed to talk about. And I really took to social media like a duck to water once I figured it out myself. And I hadn't figured it out that much, but enough to get our clients excited about it. And I just took like 3 more years while still working the day job to really understand social media better and better, would do like practice runs, little just freebies with my friends. Can I help you with your LinkedIn profile like I helped you? And then 3 years went by and I thought, okay, I'm ready now. So at age 64, then, of course, 8 years ago, I retired into my business. So that's how it happened that me at this age, believe it or not, is relatively savvy with particularly LinkedIn and Facebook my next best site.
What I love, you just said at the age of 64, you retired into your new business.
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe a lot of our listeners might think, oh, the age of 64, which that's my age right now,
Wow.
is that, yeah, I know. I don't know how that happened, but that, it's just, you're done. It's over. You can't do anything else. And at this point in my life, I'm launching a new program of my Fit and Flexible program online. So, it's almost like it's a new beginning.
Yeah, exactly. It is. To me, as hard as the pandemic has been, and I'm not going to in any way diminish that. People have died and so much has happened. Jobs have been lost and businesses have been closed. I think people have gotten awfully darn creative in terms of how to still continue to offer their services and to meet people like we're going to be talking about today.
Absolutely. So then talk to us a little bit more how you went from doing the social media tutoring and your expertise, and how did that morph into the networking and the connecting, or was it just kind of like a natural segue?
Well, I am almost a compulsive networker. There is a tool called the Strengths Finder, and I recommend that all your listeners check it out. It's a wonderful way to find out of 34 strengths, very well researched. This is all run through Gallup, the big research organization. You can find out your top 5 skills. In fact, if you pay a little extra, you can find out all 34 skills in order from first to 34th. Well, my top skill, or my top strength is the word I should use, is winning others over. And that means if we're in an airplane, is the best example, on a trip, and there's 3 seats together, so the husband and the daughter sit together, and I'm happier when I'm sitting in the other 3 seats so I can meet new people, get to know their life story while traveling from Denver to New York or something. So that's the way I like to operate. My dad was like that. I mean, we'd be like at the feed mill or something in this small town where I'm from, Wisconsin, and he'd see some new farmer. Oh, I haven't met you yet, sir. Or better yet, we're standing in line at Carlsbad Caverns, and they'd say, where are you from? Well, we live about 50 miles from Green Bay. You might have heard of them. In the 60s when the Packers were like really good. So at any rate, he was just a master at that. So I could just meet people so easily. And so I've been like that since I was a kid. And then related to that is something called connectedness. That's my number 6 skill or strength. And I really like to connect one person with another, not like matchmaking, like where people fall in love and get married maybe, but business matchmaking. And I just really get a lot of pleasure out of that. And people are so grateful. So I have this knack of thinking, ooh, maybe that person. And if I'm like at an after hours, that's, by the way, a really great way to get out of a conversation if you're done talking to that person. It's, oh my gosh, there's Cheryl. You've got to meet her. She's perfect. But I do it genuinely. I mean, people sniff that out if it was fakey. But yes, I really like to connect. It's just a natural gift of mine.
And you're so good at it because you have connected me with a lot of different people, especially, now in this past year, since we haven't been doing the in-person networking, which of course you always rock the room. It's really funny. You're just amazing to watch. It's like poetry in motion, but you've connected me with a lot of wonderful people, and a lot of them online now, since we haven't been getting out or doing anything over the past year. And the funny thing is, you've taught me so much, but you've actually taught me how to connect the dots. And so I'm starting to do that. It's almost like, what would Joyce do with this? So as I meet somebody, it's like, I've got another person over here that you might want to meet. But of course, we're doing it all virtually. Right. But yeah, so that's a little bit of your strength, kind of has the cup overfloweth and taught me something. So it's really
that's
fun
so
to do.
Sweet. I want to tell you a really quick story about today, and we can always circle back to the direction we're going. But I had 2 people ask me to connect on LinkedIn. One of them from Nepal, and another from Canberra, Australia, the nation's capital.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the lady from Nepal is all about living sustainably and about, if you've read about like people who are waste pickers,
Mm-hmm.
there's so much going on in the whole environmental movement, particularly around the oceans. But I was reading through her bio there, her LinkedIn profile, and I thought right away of one of my clients who is a sustainability consultant in San Francisco. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have got to connect this gal in Nepal with my gal in San Francisco. And then it gets even better because the gal in Canberra, I can't remember if she was an attorney, there was somebody, but anyway, the point is she's into the imposter syndrome. Now she works with entrepreneurs and women who are feel like they're imposters, but they're not really.
Mm-hmm.
And wouldn't you know it, one of my new best buddies, who I just met last month through LinkedIn and is herself a LinkedIn coach, has become my LinkedIn coach. She just started a workshop on the imposter syndrome, doing it through LinkedIn Live. And I'm like, oh, I've got to get her connected with Clarine. So then I thought, oh, it's Tuesday, it's 7:30. I got to write a tip. My tip is written for me. So I write, when you see people who want to connect with you on LinkedIn, don't just think about yourself. Think about the people you know, because there could be people there that you can connect them with. And there's a cool little feature on LinkedIn where you click on more. Like, these people say, once I connect with them, and then I can send that lady's profile over to Clarine or to my client in San Francisco just through LinkedIn. Isn't that neat? And then Clarine is tipped off like she's probably already sent in a LinkedIn invite to this gal in Canberra, Australia. It just blows my mind.
You are, again, so good at everything that you do, but you really are the ninja of LinkedIn because you are so good at that. And it's really funny. I just have to share a story of after I had met you. I invited you. I was a speaker coordinator for a local ladies group, networking group, Ladies Who Lunch, and invited you to come and speak to the group. And I was so excited to have you come. And as soon as you walked in the room, I mean, the meeting hadn't even started yet, and you were calling people by name and mentioning, oh yeah, about your business or, little tidbits. And I looked at you later and I said, did you know these people? Have you met them? And you were like, no, I went on LinkedIn. You clicked to see who was going to be at the meeting. And then I call it in my little ninja brain, you stalked them on LinkedIn. And I thought that was a wonderful tip. And I started doing that, is looking up people's profile before I meet them. And it just makes for a much smoother connection.
I think people are very honored, actually, that you would take the time to look them up and find out some things about them. And that way you've already sort of broken the ice with them. You say, oh, I see we both went to the University of Wisconsin, or, you majored in English like I did, or whatever it might be. And it's just so sweet to find the commonalities or the kind of quirky, really interesting things, like we got to be sure to talk about this. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it really helps me as a speaker, if I have even a handful of people like that I can use as examples. I mean, the other day I spoke at Cherry Creek Chamber of Commerce at a leads group there. Mm-hmm. And what I did is, while they were introducing themselves right on the fly, I'm like, going through and I'm looking them up on LinkedIn. So then I could use a couple of them, as examples when I spoke. So that worked out.
Well, it's so much more engaging because, and it makes you so relatable. And again, like you said, people are honored that you took the time to learn something about them in this, especially in today's society. Everything is, 24/7, quick, jumping around to different things. And to have somebody take the time, and it doesn't take that much time.
No, it really doesn't. It doesn't. Absolutely. And then what you might do, and I don't always do it right away, is get that information from that person. Well, once you've connected with them on LinkedIn, then you can put that into your CRM, client relationship management tool. I happen to use Pipedrive. I highly recommend it, like a pipe in your sink and drive like the car. Pipedrive is just $12 a month. And it's also in the cloud. So there's an app on your phone. That's handy too. Like when you're connecting with someone, you're having coffee like in person, which it happens nowadays a little bit more. And you can say, oh gosh, this makes me think of Cheryl. And maybe I didn't know you that well enough, so you're not a contact of mine in my phone, but you're in my Pipedrive, or you're certainly in my LinkedIn. So, but the combination is really powerful. So then I could maybe go in and type just 2 or 3 little points about them into my CRM, into my pipe drive.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another way to get a few little particulars into somebody's, and it also helps me know like how I met them. See, in the pipe drive, there's a whole infrastructure, for lack of a better word, where you have a field that says, how did I meet this person?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I can figure, like you and I met at that
Rising Tide.
Rising Tides, the other Rising Tides,
Right.
with the library, right? But then if we, I think, did connect on LinkedIn pretty soon, I can know from LinkedIn how long I've known you. I can go back to the actual, maybe not month, but the year. That's actually, when I go to your profile, it's in the contact info section, right along with your website and your phone number and your email. It says when you and I connected on LinkedIn.
It was in 2016.
Good girl. Good for remembering. Yeah.
Well, I had a way of remembering. It was shortly after I published my book.
That's right. Your book was just out. Yeah, I remember. And then we met at Panera Bread, I think, over here in Belmont. You were so sweet to come over because you live on the east side.
Yeah, but in those days we were driving everywhere. I mean, we don't go that many places now, but no, it was great. And when we did have that one-on-one, and I'm digressing. I know I'm kind of going.
No, but it kind of relates to our overall topic. So
it does, but this is another special point that I do remember when we had our one-on-one at Panera. It was before Christmas, right before Christmas, and I was there first, and you came walking in wearing a Santa outfit.
Oh, so that cute little Santa dress.
You were wearing a Santa dress. I think you even had a Santa hat on. And I mean, my eyes just bulged. And you says, I just came from a Toastmasters meeting or some sort of meeting that you were at. And I was like, my goodness, who is this person? And then all of a sudden, this little girl was with her dad and she went, Daddy, Santa. And you said, oh, excuse me. And you left me at the table so you can go over and talk to the little girl.
Yeah, right. For remembering that. I still have a picture of me in Facebook where they have those pictures from years ago. And I wore that for several occasions that December, and there you have memories of that. Yeah.
So that's when I realized that, yes, she certainly will talk to anybody and everybody as long as someone's interested.
Yeah.
So people who are listening to this, and maybe they have, friends who are a little bit older who have lost the ability to connect because of the pandemic. And, maybe they don't have that same type of comfort level with being on the computer or being on social media or using Zoom. It makes me very sad because I think a lot of people have gotten isolated, and that's not good for our health. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, it's just not good.
Yeah, well, you have to figure where's their possible comfort zone. I mean, if they don't have a computer, they could always use an iPad. You can do, or an iPhone for even, for Zoom, if they're going to be willing to give it a try. Or another really easy thing to do, and I think, is FaceTime. So you have your FaceTime on your phone, right? That's what we do every Sunday with our little 5-year-old granddaughter who lives in Vermont with her mother, our daughter, Jane, and our son-in-law, Ari, her dad. And now we don't talk to Ari so much, but we mostly talk to Hava and to Jane, our daughter. And what was really sweet, I got, there's this book written by Mina Harris, whose aunt is Kamala Harris, our new vice president. And I'd heard about this book. I think in NPR, they'd interviewed Mina Harris, the author. It's called Ambitious Girl. So I got this book, Ambitious Girl, for my granddaughter. This just always brings me to tears. So my daughter Jane reads to my granddaughter the whole book and shows me each page, the illustrations for each page when she's done showing it to Hava. And it was so sweet. And then Jane had taken a picture of my granddaughter, you might have seen it on Facebook, holding this book, Ambitious Girl. And I thought, I've got to put that on Facebook. I mean, it was just so sweet, everything about her. And when you think of girls who are 5 years old now, I mean, that's a whole nother digression.
Right.
Just that it's a different world they're growing up in. I say that in terms of as a grandmother and as a tool, I think Facebook Live is certainly something you can use to stay connected to people. Helps. I mean, there's other ways. There's WhatsApp and other tools that, I don't use. Those are ones that you can use.
I have an aunt who is 92 years old.
Wow.
I know. We just love our Aunt Stella. She is so incredibly special. Up until the time that the pandemic hit, she was still driving herself to the bowling alley. So she would bowl like 3 times a week with her bowling team. She lives with one of my cousins and still does all the cooking and everything like that. The only thing they won't let her go to the grocery store because of COVID, because of her age. But every Sunday, the cousins have a Zoom call because one of them lives in South Carolina. And then we're invited too, because I have sisters in Pittsburgh, I have sisters in Philadelphia, a sister in Philadelphia, one in Michigan. So it's a big Zoom fest on Sunday afternoon, whoever wants to come on. It's so good to see my Aunt Stella.
I love it that you can see her. See, my Aunt Roseanne, who is 93 years old,
Oh,
she's just right around the same age. We just talk by phone,
mm-hmm.
but still that's better than nothing. And we talk
Yes.
maybe every 6 to 8 weeks, I'd say. But yeah, it's been hard for her in her community. She lives in a senior living community
Mm-hmm.
where they, in the summertime, they could have the visitors could, sit around parking lot like
Oh,
social
yeah, yeah,
distances,
yeah.
just like in lawn chairs. And then over the winters, it's gotten bad. They're all like hunkered down back in their little units and just getting their food brought in so they can't do their
Oh,
congregate eating. It's been hard. Yeah,
oh,
I mean, I'll think there's a lot of people have suffered during this time. I'm gonna say elderly, however you want to define that, but people who are in those more restricted environments,
mm-hmm.
and then of course children that can't go to school. But yeah,
Right.
there's tools, and it's good. Sometimes I know, like my husband has an aunt around the same age, and we do Zoom family calls like you do on Sundays, not as often. But the mother had come out of one of those senior living places because so many people were dying there, and
Oh,
now lives with her oldest daughter and husband, like much like your Aunt Stella does.
right.
So she'll be on the Zoom call kind of in the same frame, with her daughter.
Uh-huh.
So we'll still
Right.
get to see Aunt Lola.
So
Hmm.
I need to, again, I'm going to backtrack just a little
Yeah,
bit because there we're talking, age. I'm 64,
yeah.
you're 72, my aunt's 92, your aunt's 93. And I think that that is actually a testimony to lifelong learning
Hmm. Oh, totally.
because it's like, you just never stop.
Yeah, yeah.
And my aunt is that way too. I mean, she still tries to stay as active as possible. She's very savvy with the computer, so she does get on her computer, and calls people and stuff. And of course, she's constantly reading. She can't bowl, which really breaks my heart for her. But hopefully, pretty soon she'll be able to do that because it was just something she's done all her life.
Yeah, it's interesting. So surprising me, my Aunt Roseanne doesn't read books, but she will read the newspaper, just backwards and forwards. And so does my Aunt Lola, on my husband's side. So everybody, my mom was a big lifelong learner.
Hmm.
And that's that side, the educator side,
Hmm.
where my grandpa was a principal. And
Oh,
so I
wow.
think you're fortunate, when one's family, it's sort of genetic and also learned behavior to keep reading books that you read in high school when you're in your
Hmm.
40s and your daughter's reading them in high school. So it
Hmm.
helps.
Yeah, my dad was a lifelong learner. He never
Mhm.
started. It drove my mother kind of crazy at
Mhm.
times because it's like you've got 5 kids, you don't have time for all this stuff. But he started karate when he was 40. He started skiing at the same time when he was 40. He
Wow.
was just constantly, doing things, and even he passed away when he was right before he turned 84, and he was still working. What we would call on call as a substitute for a VOTEC school in our area back
No
east.
kidding. Good for your
Hmm.
dad.
Hmm. Yeah,
Wow.
he never gave up. I mean, it was just,
Mhm.
which is really pretty cool. I mean, I've got incomparable stubbornness from both sides, both parents. So I guess that's where I get mine from. Oh, so I want to hear more about your business because you are a professional speaker, as well as having the Boomers social media tutor business. And I mean, you're always up to something. You're also very active still in Toastmasters. And as a matter of
Mhm.
fact, you've got a special event this evening. So share a little bit about your business, what you offer, the services, the clientele, that type of thing.
Oh, yeah. I'm so happy to do that. Well, I focus almost exclusively on LinkedIn and Facebook. I mean, I brand as a social media tutor and trainer. However, I think it's good for all of us to find the sites that work well for you. Like you are really rocking your Instagram. That's
Oh,
perfect for
wow.
the kind of work you do. You're doing a great job. And for the kind of work I do, LinkedIn is my best wheelhouse because really it's kind of really the teacher in me,
Mm-hmm.
the education I can impart, and LinkedIn is great for that. So what I do with a typical session would be like I had this morning. It's a gentleman, he has a new job working with a business that helps other businesses to reduce their costs. So what we had to do is we went into his LinkedIn. Now, this is over Zoom, like where we're recording our
Mm-hmm.
interview here. He shared his screen with me. And of course, I was sitting next to him. He'd be at his computer. I'd be just kind of looking over his shoulder, like when you and I met.
Mm-hmm.
At any rate, so we go through his LinkedIn profile. I mean, section by section by section, looking at, say, the cover image, his personal profile, his headline, his about section, and some things we can change right in real time. Like we changed his headline today to actually coincide with his new job, which he got actually about 6 months ago, but he'd never added it, weirdly. I don't know why. But so then we got down to the about section. Now that I'll tell my client, listen, that's going to take some thinking, some ideas here, some suggestions, but I want you to put it into a Word document and send it to me. Write it in the first person, have short paragraphs, talk about you in the context of your business. Usually, for most of my people are business owners, but tell us a little bit of backstory. How did you get to be where you are today? Like questions you're asking me. And then you get down to the experience section, which is the most resume-like or resume-esque part of your profile. And there too, I helped him with just some little tweaking of that. And just a lot of specifics that we just kind of make it cleaner. Finally, then, well, even not finally, then we move down into certifications and licenses, like you have those, of course, and then to skills and endorsements. I help them think of skills to add, especially when people pivoted in a career like he has from doing more medical sales to doing now these, business consultations with the cost reduction. So we're having to add a whole slew of skills and then to move out the top listed ones and put in the new ones. There's simple functionality there. Mm-hmm. And then talk about recommendations, testimonials, the whole concept of social proof, especially the millennial generation, not my target population, but they're the ones that are really big on this, is to make sure that you have good Google reviews, all of that. So, and on LinkedIn, for example, you can have LinkedIn recommendations written for you by people who you're connected with. Even if you're not connected to somebody, you could ask somebody to write you an email, a glowing email, just something nice, and you could take a little excerpt from that and put it into your about section or put it into your position description. So now you have that social proof there. It isn't only you saying that you're really awesome. Other people are chiming in. And then finally, there's a section that I really like to show people that sometimes it's ignored. It goes into accomplishments. It is publications like your book or projects you've done. You can call this whole FemiNinja project, your podcast is a kind of a long-term project, if you will. Any type of project or a service club type project. You can talk about organizations you belong to. I could call Ladies Who Lunch is really, through Meetup, is an organization of sorts. Women's Chamber of Commerce, see, for me, I was active with them. So all of that, these are what I would call commonalities. So someone's going down and they're looking at you and they're looking at you versus a competitor. And all of a sudden they see, oh, Joyce is in Toastmasters. Well, I thought I recognized her. Toastmasters, yep. So then they're already warm to you because they see you have this thing in common. So that's all the profile. Then the other things I go through would be connections. Okay, what's a little trick you can do if you're not sure if you want to connect with somebody or not? We can kind of go behind the scenes and write them a little message. Hey, what prompted you to reach out to me? Then think about your messaging. Are you really going into LinkedIn enough to see if there's maybe some important message waiting for you? I also help people with their settings. I want to make sure they have their settings set up so they don't miss an important message. Maybe have it flow into their email so they don't miss a beat if they've been off LinkedIn for a few days. Conversely, there's a lot of things that you're notified about that really aren't that relevant to you. So I go through those with a fine-tooth comb, whether it's the notifications that come right through LinkedIn or the ones that come by email, by the email you have associated with your LinkedIn account. So to sum it up, it's really a mix of looking at your profile and looking at the functionality of LinkedIn, and then finally looking at what you can post. what you can say, who you can share their post. So much of LinkedIn is engagement and really complimenting people, bringing them in, tagging them as it's called, like you can do on Instagram or Facebook, referencing them. So it just gets more people involved, and that makes your post visibility go up.
Mm-hmm.
Because realistically, a lot of your people that follow you or connected with you or whatever it might be, they aren't going to see your posts.
Right.
You get other people commenting, I call it energy around it, then you get more traction.
Mm-hmm.
So those are all, and this all stuff you can do for free. Now, granted, it takes time.
Mm-hmm.
You have to invest the time. And then with Facebook, just briefly on that, I'll help people with their business page. So they know what to have on their business page. It's like a little mini website, really,
Mm-hmm.
and some ideas for posting. And should they connect it over to their, well, it's always connected to your personal side of Facebook, but do you want to kind of cross-pollinate like a post from your business page? Now and again, you might want to share to your personal side of Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
maybe not. And then you can form a group out of your business page. So if you had a group of people, especially with the fitness, kinds of teachings you do,
Mm-hmm.
you'd end up having a private group sponsored essentially by your page. And then these people could form, as so common these days, kind of like a tribe, really.
Mm-hmm.
People that really, they just are so happy to know each other, like that podcast collaborative Facebook group
Right.
that you told me about. So those are some things that I help people with, the nitty gritty tutoring that I do. And
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes it can be done in just one session. Like this guy today, we thought we need to do. In the end, we got almost everything done in 1 hour. And I said, I think he said, what about our next session? I said, you aren't going to need it, Michael. You're good to go, which I was surprised myself. We were that efficient. Like, how about that? So I have an hourly fee. I charge $115 per hour. But if someone is so fortunate, like you and me, to be 6 years older, I give the senior discount rate, which sounds like
God.
at Denny's or something. Don't call me a senior. I hate that.
Right.
But I do have the senior rate of $90 an hour, which is
Mhm.
also a job seeker rate. And that is another important population I serve, obviously, for LinkedIn tutoring, are the job seekers.
It's interesting because LinkedIn is a gold mine. If you use it properly, or you know how to use it and maneuver, navigate your way around it. But I'm surprised. I've run into quite a few people recently, and they typically are younger, like maybe the millennial age, who are not even on it, or they're on it and they have maybe a handful of connections, and it's like, you don't know what you're missing here. I had a young man who was on my podcast recently, and it's like, Alberto, you need to get on LinkedIn. It's the bomb. So he did, and I was his first connection. And
Aww.
yeah, hopefully he's gotten more than me by now, but we shall
Well,
see.
what's curious is my daughter Anne, who and she's a writer, and
Mhm.
editor, so she has her own business. But my daughter Jane, who worked in nonprofits for many years, is now a home mom with a little 5-year-old. She's never been on LinkedIn. Really. And I think people in certain sectors, if you have enough connections and you've established yourself within a field, like in her particular nonprofit, she was very well regarded and would just get jobs when she would move to the next town, just
Wow.
based on her track record from the last job.
Mhm.
So I think there are exceptions to the rule. However, I think you're absolutely correct. Most people in business or any kind of field should be on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
And what I joke about, and I use the Tinder example because they'll get that one. Too often what happens is people get their job, and then so you see they got the new job, right? They say nothing about the new job, zero, just that they have it. And then you see this really filled out section below that. It's like they went swipe, 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 got my job, I'm off of LinkedIn. I'm done. Like I got my guy, I'm off of Tinder, hopefully, right? So
Yeah.
that's right. So that's the way I think that people have this mentality around LinkedIn, is only to land the job and then you can just leave. But see, what you're losing out on is just all the richness of staying in touch with people
Mhm.
you used to work with, or helping other people to get a
Mhm.
job. See, if you're hanging around, you maybe see a job posted or something comes up, you think, oh, or someone like I did this morning. There's somebody, I bet Susie would like to know her. Well, if Susie's not on LinkedIn, it's harder to connect her with this lady on LinkedIn. It's a paradigm shift.
Well, it's really interesting because when I first got on it, and that was before I met you, I still had my office, and
Right.
I had just finished my Feldenkrais training. So it's funny how it happened. I ended up connecting with a ton of psychotherapists.
Really?
Addiction counselors and
Ah,
psychotherapists. And that was because that was a population who really understood what Feldenkrais was, how it worked, the
ah.
neuroplasticity, the neural connections behind it. And it was like, wow, that was kind of crazy. And then I kind of shifted a little bit, and all of a sudden I got a ton of chiropractors and massage therapists. I mean, it's really funny how it happens. And
That is like
then
so interesting. Yeah, as you kind of change your emphasis a little bit,
mhm,
then you get this other population you're sort of popping up. Well, it's the people you may know thing. So once
right.
you get embedded with a few psychotherapists, then LinkedIn is going to start showing you to other psychotherapists.
Exactly,
Mm,
exactly. So it's just been really such an interesting,
yeah.
transformation and journey, and just how things have turned out. Now I'm almost at 3,000 connections.
Whoa.
I know, and I do get on there every day just to,
Mhm.
scroll down a little bit, like a few things, share a few things, but it's like, I don't have enough time to be able to contact 3,000
But
people.
that's it. No,
But
you don't need
I
to.
know.
And see, for what it's worth, when you put a post up, it comes up pretty regularly in my newsfeed.
And I see yours a lot too. So
Yeah, see,
I
I
guess
think
that's
that's kind of that symbiotic relationship. So
mhm,
when you're commenting on others, then they'll LinkedIn will say, "Oh, she's interested in Cheryl." Then
right.
let's make sure she sees this new post from Cheryl, and vice versa. So that's something to think about in terms of going back to our overarching theme of the connecting.
Hmm.
So if you have somebody that you've connected with and that you really feel a heart connection, like you and I feel for each other,
Hmm.
it's really sweet then when you have LinkedIn to really support you in that,
Hmm.
staying in touch and top of mind, with each other.
Hmm. Well, Joyce, is there anything else you want to share? Actually, I mean,
Well, we covered a lot of
we
territory
covered a lot of
on
territory, and
both
you're so
sides.
much fun to talk to. But
Thank
there's
you.
just one more question I just want to ask you,
Yeah.
because I think it's another little important topic and something you're very passionate about, obviously. I alluded to a little bit earlier in the conversation that you had a special event that you were doing this evening.
Mhm.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so Toastmasters is an international organization that helps people to improve their communication skills and their leadership skills. And I've been a member for 24 years this month.
Wow.
So in many ways, it was sort of like an outlet for me. It was a way for me to manifest so many things that I like to do, and not just speaking. When I had all my other jobs, especially the sales jobs, it was a place for me to really have a tribe and connect at the heart with so many people and mentor people. So what happens in a Toastmaster meeting, usually an hour to maybe an hour and a half, and people give short speeches. Tonight is a special once a year competition, but normally you would have maybe two or three or four speakers, depending on the length of the meeting, speaking for in the range of 5 to 7 minutes on a particular topic of their choosing, but there's a structure that you use to do different types of talks. Then later in the meeting, somebody gives you feedback. When we're together in person, of course, they're standing up in front of the room giving it to you, but now it's all on Zoom. So you're speaking on Zoom, either sitting or standing, give that talk, and then somebody will tell you in 2 or 3 minutes what you did well and where you could improve. And then the other members of the group will, in real life, physically, will write you little notes, or you can use other, private chat on the
Hmm.
Zoom or
Hmm.
use a Google form or something. And then between the prepared speaking time and the evaluation time, there's what's called table topics, which is impromptu speaking. And that's where somebody is going to ask folks who don't have a larger part to bring them sort of to the front of the room or virtually in Zoom, call them to speak. And so they'll ask them some question, some usually related to the theme of the meeting set by the Toastmaster or the meeting MC. It'll be something you likely never would have thought of unless they tipped you off, which would be cheating. And so then you speak for just 1 or 2 minutes. You can make it up. I
Hmm.
mean, it just needs to be within propriety, is what I'd call it, but you can
Hmm.
kind of bullshit it to be blunt. And it is so hilarious. It's so much fun. We always call it the most fun part of the meeting. And the very end of the meeting, after the evaluator is all done, there are even reports from people who are counting your ahs and your ums, those little crutch filler sounds. Somebody's going to listen for really interesting words of the English language. That's the grammarian. Or if you made a grammatical error, they're timed. Everything's timed. The speeches are timed. The evaluations are timed. The table topics, impromptu speakers are timed. it's just such a diverse array of things that happen in just an hour and a half. So that in a group of 20, almost everybody has some little part.
Mm-hmm.
And then they rotate it around. So the next meeting, you have a different role.
Mm-hmm.
It's just such a cool concept. And it was formed, or really, it dates back to 1924. And even
Wow.
earlier, the first clubs were in the early 1900s.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is that by public speaking and giving feedback to others and impromptu speaking, you grow your confidence. When you know that as a speaker yourself, you just feel better about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can carry this over into your work life, your personal life, your volunteer life. And the kind of people drawn to Toastmasters have such a heart, such a generosity of spirit. It isn't like Dale Carnegie, where you're kind of really your company paid for it and
Mm-hmm.
just there to be a better speaker. This is very collaborative.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so delightful and so kind of equal. I mean, I've gotten such helpful feedback from people very new to Toastmasters, giving me some really helpful tips. That's why I stay, because I just think it's so fascinating. You can learn so much and help others, and they can help you.
One of the things that I thought for myself that was so helpful, because I did it for a while, was to learn how to structure a speech.
Yes.
Because when you're going to be giving a talk the following week, and you have to sit down, and to be able to take those steps to figure out how to put a talk together was so valuable. And then another gentleman that you connected me with, oh my gosh, Brooke Chestnut.
Yes, Brooke Chestnut.
I
Yes.
can't remember what number his episode was, but he was on my show too. Fantastic guy. But anyhow, what he said, one of the things that he learned from Toastmasters was how to listen.
Oh, yes. Thank you for reminding me about that, because you do so much listening to give the
Mm-hmm.
feedback to the speaker, whether you're the assigned evaluator or just one of the regular members or the people listening for the ahs and ums. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
listening is a big part of it.
Mm-hmm. So, and table talks or table
Table
topics or whatever.
topics. Yeah,
Yeah, I rocked those. My very first meeting,
I
I
can see.
won. Yeah, I won like 4 weeks in a row, and then I bombed the fifth time, and I thought, I'm going to stop volunteering when they say, who wants to participate. But yeah, it was fun. It was
That's
really
so
fun.
cool. I'm glad we have that common
We have
experience.
a lot of common connections, Joyce,
Yeah.
and it's not just because we're baby boomers.
Yes.
Okay, so tell the listeners where they can find you. This will be on the description,
Right.
so it'll
Right.
always be there, but just go ahead and tell them how they can find you.
I think the best way for people to find me is simply my website. So I'll say that slowly, www.boomers, BOOMERS. So more than one boomer. Boomers plural. So Boomers Social Media Tutor, TUTOR, like a teacher. Boomersocialmediatutor.com. And that's way there's a contact us, and you have my name there, of course. You can then find me on LinkedIn. But since my name's so tricky, Joyce Feustel, doesn't sound like it like you think, I just don't even go there with my name. Just go to Boomers Social Media Tutor and you're good to go. Or, I'm on Facebook too. They can find me there under that business name.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Do you have any last little tidbits or words of wisdom for us? I mean, this was full of fantastic information.
I think just to do your best to get more comfortable with virtual experiences like we're having right now, creating this recording, whether it's Zoom or Google Meets or Microsoft Teams or Facebook Live. Just give it a try. Maybe have somebody with you when you're first learning, show you all the different little functionalities, and realize it's better to be connected that way than not to be connected at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just don't isolate, really reach out to people, because it's just not good for you to just be there all by yourself and sad for yourself. And think of ways you can give back and do things too for people. And that's a great way to connect. You can connect with people when you're volunteering. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of ways that you can give back and make connections that could last a lifetime. You just never know.
And if I could add another little bit of information or a bit of advice, don't be afraid of making a mistake or looking silly. because it's a learning experience. You learn from your mistakes. My
Yep.
first Facebook Live, and this was right at the very beginning of the pandemic, and I, found out, oh my gosh, we're going to be, stuck at home for 2 weeks. What am I going to do? I mean, in 2 weeks, I thought I was going to go crazy, but I was going to make the most of that time. So I taught myself how to do Facebook Live, and I was so nervous, and I was live, and it was going really well. And I was like at the end of 4 minutes, and I'm going, yes, I am rocking this. And my phone fell out of the holder.
Oh no, how awkward.
I found the delete button very quickly.
Ah, yes. Yeah, there's so much that can happen. What's that, Murphy's Law? Anything
Exactly.
will go wrong.
Exactly. But, if you screw up, if you make a mistake, look at some of the professionals on television who are recording from their home and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It makes you more human and more relatable.
So, yeah, Facebook Live is kind of meant to be like a home movie. I think it's all right if you have a few little, glitches in it.
Yeah. Well, Joyce, thank you so much for being here with us.
I loved it.
Oh, I just so appreciate it. And I appreciate you. And I just can't wait for the day that we can actually be face to face and maybe even give ourselves a hug.
Yeah,
each other a hug.
That.
I know.
Thanks so much. It's just been great.
And thank you, everyone, for listening. I really appreciate it. And remember, put yourself out there. Continue to make connections. Build relationships, even if it's a little awkward or uncomfortable, if you're in front of the computer or you just are a little bit zoomed out. We kind of get a little tired of that, but make sure that you do continue to nurture your relationships as well as yourself, because that is the way of the FemiNinja. And that's a wrap on another episode of the FemiNinja Project. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, be safe, be strong, and until next time, bye now.